Good evening and welcome to Wollaton Watch. Today we'll be showing you videos from nature, wildlife and different environments in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. We also want to remind you that this is part of the Nottingham's Festival of Science and Curiosity.
So in yesterday's programme we had a little bit of a stargazing theme, and it turned out to be a pretty clear night after all the snow. So do let us know if you managed to have a look at any of the stars in the sky, if you could see any of the things that Mike suggested. And remember that citizen science project that we mentioned, looking at the stars around the Orion constellation to help researchers learn more about light pollution, is open until Sunday. So you've got until Sunday to do your submissions.
Yes, and also on that topic we want to remind you that if you wanted to send any photos or videos in, that today is the last day, so if you could hopefully send it through today, that would be really helpful so we can show your photos tomorrow. And if you wanted to do that, we're at Notts Forsac, and please use the hashtag Wollaton Watch. If you wanted to email it to us instead, we're wollatonwatch@nottsforsac.co.uk.
So now we're going to jump into our first clip for today's programme, and we're heading up to Newstead Abbey to find out more about the wildlife and the history of the grounds.
Hi, I'm Barbara Norton. I volunteered to do the garden here at Newstead. I used to come here as a little girl, then when I was married with my sons and then grandchildren, so got lots of lovely memories. And one day I was on a walk with a friend nearby, and it was Heritage Day when it was open, so we came in and I was quite upset what a state it was in, because they cut, hardly any staff here to garden. My friend said they're asking for volunteers, so I said yes, I'll do it. And I've been here nearly 6 years now, and it's a beautiful place to work, and I like to think I'm contributing to helping getting it back to how it should be.
Yeah, I'm Jim. I've been volunteering here for about 2.5 years now. When I retired from sitting behind a desk and looking at a screen for all my life, I wanted to go and do something outside. My kids used to come here, they still come here, it's one of their favourite places to come, and I just thought it's a place where I could give back something to a place which meant a lot to them. It's great because there's no noise, you don't hear no traffic, it's a really quiet place to come and work, and the great thing is you always see something that you've done or you've contributed to make it look better and be a better place for other people to come and see. What really makes it good is that the people who come and visit always tell us what a great place it is.
This is the Cloister Garden, which is based literally inside Newstead Abbey, and it's basically used as a nursery. When Indy's had 2 lots of chicks, she had 4 last year, she's got 1 this year, and she flies back in, lays her eggs in the bushes and just sits there for weeks and weeks. And then this one was born in July, so we're looking after her. They love worms especially, so we feed them daily, keeps them healthy and thriving. Arthur Parkinson introduced one peacock called Arthur about 8 or 9 years ago, and they have reproduced since then, and I think we've got around 30 within the grounds. The public love them. We've got products in the shop related to peacocks. People come especially to see the peacocks.
So some of the wildlife that's on site here is quite rare. We have some white-billed crayfish. So they are the only crayfish native to the British Isles, and the reason they are rare is because many moons ago they introduced the American signal crayfish. Now it's its bigger cousin. It also outcompetes the white-billed crayfish, and also brings what they call crayfish plague, which obviously wipes out our own populations, a bit like the sort of grey squirrels and red squirrels. So we're now at Newstead Abbey Lake. The technically a reservoir due to the volume of water it's hold. Back in the day it was used for mock naval battles by the 4th Lord. Now it's more home to our resident geese and swans. We've also got a lot more hens and coots on, and one of the most specialist things we get is actually our feeding bat population. So the bats we have here on the Newstead estate, not just at the Abbey but on the wider estate, are sort of Dor Bentons, pipistrelles, liselers, whiskered, brown long-eared bats, all of which call somewhere on the roost to stay at their home. So they use summer roost and winter roost. One of those is actually in the Abbey building itself.
Wasn't that great from Newstead Abbey?
Yes, that was lovely, and it was also just lovely to see there was so much variety to the ground, and also it was just so nice to hear from the volunteers and like what motivated them and why they came, and to see how much effort they'd put in. And I really love that there's peacocks and peahens. That looks so cute.
Yeah, it's so interesting how the peacocks use that kind of cloister bit. It's enclosed, it's protected from the weather and the wind and other predators, and that's how they where they raise their little peahens, which were so cute. I know that the peacocks are really popular, obviously, at Newstead Abbey, so if you've got some photos, that's a great idea to send those in to us.
Next up, we're going to somewhere further up north to Rainsworth Heath, where we're going to be seeing so much of the British weather in all its glory. But first, we're going to try and get that on the map, please.
Yes, so let's catch up with our map. So in the first video up there, we were in Newstead Abbey, which we're going to plot kind of here-ish. Starting to get really busy up on the map. And then next up, we're heading over to Rainsworth Heath, which is kind of in this area here. Pin that up on the map. So yeah, if we head over to that video now, we'll catch up with Rainsworth Heath.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm the manager of a scheme called Wollaton Major. We're here on a quite grey and wet day at Rainsworth Heath in North Nottinghamshire. It's a beautiful area, and to be honest, it's really nice to be outdoors. Wollaton Major, we're a landscape partnership scheme. We are supported by funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So we're a partnership of organisations, so that's local authorities, it's conservation organisations and local groups. And the scheme is focusing on the heritage of the Sherwood Forest area. The area was a mixture of woodland, open birch woodland, open heathland, like we've got here at Rainsworth Heath. Sherwood Forest was once part of a royal hunting forest in medieval times, and it would have covered a fifth of the area of Nottinghamshire. Sherwood Forest is known nationally, internationally, for the legend of Robin Hood, and that's a really important part of the history of the area. But if you dig deeper, there's a much wider history for the area that's really sort of shaped what it is today. And so you go back to when it was a medieval hunting forest, the ducal estates here that were called the dukeries, and then the impact of industry, mills, mining. We're just adjacent to here is the old Rufford colliery site. There's a number of colliery sites across the area that really shaped this landscape. Sherwood Forest is known nationally, internationally, for the legend of Robin Hood, and that's a really important part of the history of the area. A really important part of our work is working with volunteers, and it's something where we want to increase the capacity of volunteers in the area and encourage people from the area to get involved in volunteering. It's such an essential part of the work that takes place.
Hi, I'm Charlene Case. I'm Wildlife Project Officer for the Wollaton Major project, and we're here at Rainsworth Heath. So we have 3 species of heather on site. We have heather, bell heather and cross-leaved heather, which is actually quite rare and is only found in a section of our site where it's a bit wetter. So lowland heathland is really important in Nottinghamshire because we've lost about 80% of heathland coverage. So what makes Rainsworth Heath really good for wildlife is the sort of variety of different habitats that are on site. So we've got the heathland habitat. The gorse and the broom is really good for nesting birds. It also provides some shelter for lizards and grass snakes. And then we've got areas of woodland, a mixture of hawthorn, silver birch and oak, which also provide good habitat for the breeding birds. On site we get common lizards, and through the minor to major project we have been doing some monitoring on site. So if you see any big metal sheets or bits of felt roofing, they're actually monitoring sheets for the reptiles. So we have volunteers that come out and check them every couple of weeks. So we've got quite a lot of different butterflies, hoverflies, beetles. So, yeah, so when you come out around spring and summer, you'll be able to see lots of flying insects about to have a look at.
Thanks to all the volunteers for filming with us on a very wet and windy day. Minor to Major Projects is a great project. There's lots of activities associated with Sherwood Forest on the Inspire website as well.
Yes, next up we're going to play the activity again, Guess the Sound, and here's the sound for today.
So that's a really, really easy one. We might play it again for you and then go to our break. We'll see you after the break.
Welcome back, and before the break we set you off with a little activity called Guess the Sound. So here's the sound again.
So the answer for today was, of course, a cuckoo. Cuckoos spend their winter in Africa, so it won't be until March and April time that we'll be hearing that noise again in the UK. The British Trust for Ornithology actually have a cuckoo tracker, and they track the migration of cuckoos across the UK and down into Africa. They have 3 that they're tracking: Valentine, PJ and Carlton II, and they're currently in Gabon and Angola. Next up, we're back up in Sherwood Forest with Indy Keemel Green, and he's going to be talking to us about some other very special birds.
So in Sherwood Forest we've got a very wide range of species you can see coming down to the bird tables. So at the moment we've got great tits, a couple of coal tits and even a few nuthatches. So I've lived here all my life, I'm 15 years old now, and it's only the last 5 years that I've really got interested in birds, especially really cool ones like this. And it was actually this summer, while we were in deep lockdown, I was sat on my lawn in the garden having breakfast, and I think it was around 6 or 7 crossbills landed in the tree next to the garden, and I had no idea that any of them had even bred in Nottinghamshire this year. So I was just casually having my breakfast, and these 6 turn up in the garden. That obviously blew my mind. And then I was filling up this small puddle just on the edge of the lawn, so birds can come down and drink during the summer because it's very hot. And I thought, I wonder if these crossbills are thirsty. So I grabbed my camera and I waited by this pool for 2 hours, and eventually they all came down, and they even had some juveniles with them, so it had proven that they'd had a very good year, and they may have even bred quite close to my garden, and it could have even been these ones here, you never know. So we're just on the track next to Seymour Grove at the moment, in between Sherwood Forest and Budby, and we've just seen a flock of about 20 common crossbills flying to the tall larch tree next to us, and we're watching 6 at the moment. I've got 3 females and 3 males actually, and these birds have actually come all the way from Scandinavia or Scotland to spend the winter in this area. And they're feeding on the lovely larch seeds, picking out, I've just seen one actually pick up a large pine cone that's just detached from a branch, which is really cool to see. But otherwise they're just picking up some of the pine seeds from out of the pine cones in this vast area of pine trees here. So really, really nice bird to see. And this is where all the crossbills are hanging around. They're often feeding up right at the tops of the trees, picking out all the seeds from the pine cones with their specially adapted beaks that hook the seeds out with ease.
It was such a special moment to see the crossbills in Sherwood Forest. We'd spent the afternoon up in Sherwood Forest with Indy, and he was hoping that we'd be able to see the crossbills. And we were walking along this track, and we thought we weren't going to get to them. We'd been there for a little while. And then suddenly they all kind of flocked into this tree. It was really, really exciting. And of course we were looking up at them, and then Indy was looking through his binoculars, and he could tell that they were kind of getting ready to leave the tree. It was really fascinating knowledge that he's got. And that was really helpful because it meant that we could kind of prime our cameras and get that photo of them leaving the tree. Obviously our photos weren't as good as Indy's. He's obviously a great photographer. But it was a really kind of special moment. And I didn't realise before he explained that the reason they're called crossbills is because their beaks kind of cross over, and that's how they eat from the pine cones. It's really amazing.
That sounds so interesting. So next up we'll be with back to Louise's adventures, and this time we're going to be going back to seeing her and seeing how she's getting along with Rupert the hedgehog. And today she's with her son, he's called Callum, and he'll be helping her out today. So take a look at this.
This is my little boy Callum, and he's doing a great job of helping me paint Rupert's new nest box. We're going to be painting it black so that it blends in with the hedgerow where Rupert is to be released. With just a little bit of help from me, we get the whole nest box painted. This is the field that has been chosen for Rupert's release. It's an absolutely perfect field, a perfect habitat, and it's actually a very special place for me, as this is where I had my wedding celebration. Before releasing any animal back out into the wild, you need to make sure that the place is perfect. We did this by adding a camera trap. A camera trap is a waterproof camera that takes a picture or video of any animal that moves in front of it. A camera trap is the best way to survey an area, especially when we're looking for nocturnal creatures that are out at night. So the camera trap's been here for about 3 nights now. We're just going to check it, one last check before Rupert comes up in about an hour's time, just to make sure that there's no badgers here. Fingers crossed. The reason why we didn't want to see any badgers on the camera trap is that hedgehogs and badgers eat the same food. So if there were lots of badgers there, then hedgehogs would have a lot less food to eat. Also, badgers have been known to kill hedgehogs. After checking the camera trap footage, there were no badgers, which was a good thing. And there were a few small mammals. This mouse did the same trip every night. He came through the wall, scurried about in the undergrowth, and went back through the wall about 20 minutes later. The camera trap even picked up a wild rat. It's shaping up to be the perfect release site for Rupert. We even have a rainbow for good luck. I do love rainbows, they're beautiful, aren't they? If a wild hedgehog has been rescued and rehabilitated, they still have a very good chance of making a life back in the wild. They usually settle in quickly to their new homes and start gathering material to build a nest, like this one is here. Our much loved British hedgehog population has fallen by half since the year 2000. You can help hedgehogs in your very own back garden. Just leave out some meaty cat food or some cat biscuits for them to eat. Remember to leave some fresh drinking water too. And, importantly too, make sure you don't leave slug pellets out in your garden. Slugs will eat them and become poisonous to hedgehogs. This one seems mischievous. Oh dear. Putting food out for hedgehogs can attract foxes and cats which you don't want to be eating that food. This feeding station doesn't allow anything bigger than a hedgehog to get in and eat the food. According to the RSPCA, hedgehog releases should take place on a damp evening when it's not too cold, so all of their favourite food is out, like ground beetles, worms and slugs. Me and Callum think that Rupert will absolutely love this field. Hope to see you tomorrow for the big release. Goodbye!
such a lovely project to work on, isn't it? Rehabilitating a hedgehog. And there's lots of other things that you can do at home to bring nature to your garden, including building bird boxes and bat boxes, bee hotels, ponds, worm farms, and so much more. Maybe you could decide together as a family what you want to do and work on it as a project together.
Yes, and following from what Megan has just said, one really simple thing you can do is tie a lot of bamboos canes together, and it can make a great place for solitary bees to nest.
Next up, we've got another video from Sarah Robinson, and this time it's about crows. I love Sarah's videos. They're such a great kind of advert for urban wildlife. And there really is so much nature to explore in cities that we don't often see, or we're not noticing because we're rushing around. So if we all just take a little bit of time to listen, to watch, to smell, it's amazing what you'll discover.
Yes, and if you have any videos like Sarah did for us, please send them through. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we can get it on the programme for you tomorrow. So after the break, we'll be hearing from Notts Wildlife Trust, and we'll be seeing the Keep It Wild group, who have created a little activity for us, and we're going to get involved with that.
So we're looking forward to seeing you after the break, and we'll be back very shortly.
Welcome back, and we hope you're enjoying the show so far. So today we've got some more specimens to show you.
So here we go, here's our first one today. And this is from the greater kudu, which is a large woodland antelope that is found in southern and eastern Africa. They have beards that run along their throats, and then these are obviously their horns, and they're really unusual, aren't they, because they've got these twists. So these twists start to form when the kudu are about 2 years old, and they don't form their full twists, which is 2.5 twists, until they're about 6 years old. They can actually, they have found some that are that do have 3 twists, which is quite spectacular. Now these are different from antlers. So antlers, the deer at Wollaton Park have antlers and they fall off every year. But these horns stay on for the whole life of the animal. Okay, I'm going to pop that down. And then the next one that we've got is the Australian trumpet shell. And this is really obviously enormous, and it's the largest type of shell in the world. But the thing is that scientists don't really know that much about it. What they do know is that they actually are carnivorous, which means that they eat other animals, and they actually they feed on worms, and some of the worms that they eat can be up to 1 metre long. So that's really unusual to see. So these two specimens are part of the handling collection here at Wollaton Hall. I misspoke the other day when I said that they're free to borrow. It's a subscription service, and they have a really unique and historical and scientific collection. They have things like penny farthings that you can borrow, as well as a massive range of moths and butterflies and mammals and birds. They even have one of my favourite animals, which is a pangolin, and so they have thousands and thousands of specimens here. Remember that we'd love to see your videos and photos. It's your last opportunity to send them to us and to get them played on the programme. So email us at wollatonwatch@nottsfosac.co.uk or share them with us on social media at nottsfosac using the hashtag WollatonWatch.
Now, before the break, we mentioned a creative activity that we'd like you to get involved in. This next video is from Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust, Keeping It Wild group, and this is their campaign to celebrate urban wildlife.
Forest plus historic is forest-historic. To a plant instead of uprooting our city's legendary heritage. Rewilding the city oak by oak is the major task.
Roof Flora, Roof and Flora, a future where Nottingham is the UK's green roof capital. Gardens on the roofs, nature at the top of life, where the sun hits first.
Yards and meadows, yardos, to create wildlife meadows across our city. Butterfly buffets replace nectarless slabs of grey beneath our feet.
Trees is trees and breathe. Trees are critical to our survival, choking on exhaust fumes. But it could be different, breathing the breath of trees.
So we really loved this activity, and we were having a go at coming up with some of these ourselves. Jess, do you want to have a go at the first one?
Yes, so we thought of bee roads, a car-free roads which are lined with beehives and pollinated plants. So this is where volunteers and gardeners are paid in honey.
So that's our first one, bee roads. Our next one is hedgements. So we would replace the metal street furniture with hedges. So not only would it make our city look much more exciting, but it would also be a great place for wildlife.
Yes, and the last one we thought of was grotels, eco-hotels with green roofs and kitchen gardens and also solar power.
And you could have hydroponic planting systems inside, you can have grey water irrigation so that you're reusing water instead of wasting it. So if you can come up and think of any of your ideas for a kind of a manifesto for nature in Nottingham City or the county as well, have a go at that. Let the Notts Wildlife Trust know that that's what you're doing and take part in that activity. Next up, we are heading over to the library service. So Nottingham City Libraries are telling us a bit about the gardens and wildlife across the city libraries.
Nottingham City has 14 community libraries, some of which have fantastic community gardens. Libraries with gardens include Dales, Bilborough, Basford, Aspley, Meadows, Radford, Wollaton and Strelly. The gardens are looked after by a combination of libraries, parks and volunteers. They are really important green spaces in our hectic urban environment, attracting wildlife and creating a sense of well-being, peace and tranquility. We see many different animals attracted to the gardens, from the occasional fox to squirrels, owls and other birds, and butterflies on the large flowers at Wollaton Library. Behind Baseford Library, there is a duck pond, and the library has a wildlife shop selling bags of duck food, bird houses, insect homes and other nature-related items. We work closely with parks at Baseford, and the park ranger gives guided walks. The positive values of an outdoor space include fresh air and psychological and social benefits. Our gardens serve to encourage the public to make use of the valuable resources that the library can provide under normal circumstances. We believe our gardens contribute generally to improve the health, social, educational and economic well-being of Nottingham City residents.
I'm so looking forward to being able to go back to libraries to borrow some books when they reopen. As part of the festival this year, we've actually done a project with the Nottingham City Libraries where we've made small microscopes available for loan. So as well as being able to borrow books and CDs and DVDs and everything else you can do at libraries, you'll also be able to borrow some small camera microscopes that you'll be able to clip onto your phone or onto tablets, and you'll be able to take your own microscope images. So when the libraries reopen to the public, make sure you check out that. So as we mentioned right at the top of the programme, this Wollaton Watch is part of the Nottingham Festival of Science and Curiosity. So we're almost halfway through the festival now, and we've still got lots and lots of activities for you to take part at home. So we've got activities for families, we've got a whole list of resources and things for you to do at home, videos, worksheets, digital games and interactive activities as well that you can do in your own time. We've also got some panel discussions and talks happening. There's a talk next week about sustainability. So if you're interested in learning more about wind farms and eco homes and also Nottingham's ambition to become carbon neutral by 2028, then have a look on the festival website and get involved in that event. Later on, we'll also be talking a bit more about another one of our artists. So Roma Patel is our festival artist in residence this year. It's the first time we've had an artist in residence. We're very excited about her work, and she'll be exploring mycelium that will be back here at Wollaton Hall when it reopens.
Next up, we've got a video for people who love birds and bird watchers, and also people who were taking part in the Garden Bird Watch last month. Here's some birds up in Sherwood Forest.
So in Sherwood Forest we've got a very wide range of species you can see coming down to the bird tables. So at the moment we've got great tits, a couple of coal tits and even a few nuthatches.
On tomorrow's programme, we'll have a feature about bird spotting in the lake in Wollaton Park.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a bird theme today, haven't we?
Yeah.
I've never heard of so many different types of birds. Watching birds in my backyard has been something that I've kind of really taken to in the past year. I don't have a very green garden. It's a bit of a grey jungle, really. So they don't come very often. It's usually, the other day I spoke about the rat that I saw in my garden. It's more rats that we get than birds. But when they do come, I find it so exciting. And what I do is I take a photo. There's so many different animal and wildlife spotting apps that you can get out there, download for free. So I take a photo and then I upload it onto my app. and then there'll be some experts who are kind of working away, and they'll make some suggestions of what they think it is. And that's how I know the other day there was a dunnock on my fence.
Oh, that is really interesting.
So something that you guys can do at home is when spring starts to come as well, is you can use those kinds of apps to see what kinds of weeds you've got in your garden, what kinds of butterflies are in your garden, or trees in your local park.
Yes, so like Megan said, she's taken plenty of pictures of the birds. So if you have any and you'd like to send them through, feel free. And after the break, we'll be learning about what scientists have done here in Nottingham and learn more about snails.
So we're looking forward to seeing you very shortly after the break.
Welcome back to Wollaton Watch, and we want to say thank you for your comments online. We've been seeing them and we really appreciate them, so thank you and keep them coming.
So we've obviously been spending months filming lots of different clips for Wollaton Watch, and we came down to the park quite a lot of times, obviously all in accordance with what restrictions were in place at the time. But we came down here a lot in kind of September time, and we kept seeing this lady with this enormous camera lens. And she was taking photos and taking photos, and she was wondering what we were doing as well. And this was Uni, and she's an amazing photographer, and she's also a volunteer here at Wollaton Park, so she knows pretty much everything about the ground. She was telling us, if you want deer today, they're over here. If this is the best place to take these photos of this type of bird. So she was super helpful. And as we were getting to know Uni, she was telling us some really interesting stories about the wildlife in the park, and particularly about some of the deer and her experiences, having spent obviously so much time down here. So the next video is a little bit about Uni and why she's passionate about nature, and some of her stories of being in Wollaton Park.
My interest in wildlife and nature has been ever since I was a young child. My dad taught us a lot about respect for the nature and the wildlife. I started taking pictures of the deer probably about 10 years ago. It's fascinating to watch them, and the more you watch them, the more you learn about them, their behavior, their individuality. The first memory I remember now of the deer in particular was a day I was in the formal gardens, in the sensory garden. I went in there, and then suddenly I saw this big stag sitting in the middle of the flower bed, and I couldn't believe my eyes. The first I remember was Tsiquaye. He was a character, very laid back, and he also managed to get in. He was the one who was in the formal garden, and I was told at the time that he could open the gate, which I believe he could, because he used his antlers to pull down branches. My advice to the public would be respect the deer, keep your distance, do not approach them. If they come towards you, you should, if possible, move away calmly. If that is not an option, just act calmly, stay still, don't make eye contact, and definitely not try to touch them or feed them. Okay, this is the flower bed I told you about, Sideswipe. I was walking in here just to sit down, and there it was, just spread out like it didn't have a care in the world. It didn't mind me at all. So I was just sat, I think I just sat quietly down, and he was just sitting there. Probably like I am here to the middle of the flower bed. So a couple of meters maybe. I wouldn't have got that close if I knew he was there, obviously.
So I had no idea like deers had names, and you can really tell that the volunteers really thought about it and thought about like the personality and stuff when they were giving them names. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so interesting when we were walking around with Unish. She was telling us this is this one, this is that one, and I guess that's what happens when you spend so much time in a place. You get really familiar with the nature of the different deer and how they act and where they like to go. So yeah, it was really interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yes, for our final video for today's episode, we're going to be learning more about snails from Angus Davison, an expert from the University of Nottingham.
So Angus took us down to his allotments in near Beeston, where he likes to spend his time when he's not researching, and it's a great place to obviously find snails. So here's the video we filmed with Angus.
I'm Dr. Angus Davison. I'm an evolutionary geneticist at the University of Nottingham. These are some of my snails. So these are the second most common snail you can find in Britain. I think a lot of people won't be familiar with them, but you can see one of the really interesting things about them is they vary in their colour. So this is a yellow one here, this is kind of a browny pinkish one here with bands, and this is a brown one with lots of bands. And one of the things I do is to try to understand why they're colourful in this way. These snails are called Tsiquaye or grove snail. You might think these are from some tropical beach or something like that, but actually you can find these in Nottingham. Got a yellow one there and a kind of a pinky banded one. And one of the things I'm interested in is trying to understand why they are so colourful, why you get these different kinds. I suppose in some way, in the same way that some people have blue eyes and some people have brown eyes. Some snails are yellow and some snails are brown, and we don't entirely understand the genetics that causes that. And you could be really helpful to me by going out and finding these. You can probably find them in a garden if you have one, you can find them in the park, you can find them and then look at the different colours and record the numbers of each type. And as a scientist, I'd be really interested to know the different numbers of the different types you find around Nottingham. And if possible, actually you could upload it to somewhere like iNaturalist, then us scientists can use that information to then try and understand why we have the different colours and the different types. Because we can then use that information to really try to understand why you get these different types. And they have a spiral which usually nearly always coils clockwise. Why do you think it always coils clockwise? Why do you think they have different colours? So the colours of the different shells are determined by their genes. The direction that the shell coils is determined by the genes. But a few years ago we came across on a compost heap a very rare left coiling snail. This is that snail. This is the snail that came to be known as Jeremy the snail. So Jeremy the snail coils anti-clockwise and is about 1 in a million. So these left coiling snails are really, really rare. And you could do something for me here. You could help me find more of them. So we found a few of them, but we still don't really know why left coiling snails are so rare. So if you go out into your garden or park and try and find another left coiling snail for me, and you do find them, that would be super amazing. And you can recognise an adult snail. It has a little lip at the end which is upturned, and so you can work out roughly how old it is. So I know these guys here must be probably at least a year old, and they might live for 3 or 4 years. So if you know, sometimes if you're coming home and it's a rainy night and you stand on the snail and it dies, it's very sad for the snail especially. It's taken a few years to get to that point.
So that's a really simple way that anybody can get involved in scientific research. Next time you find a snail, have a quick look and see if it coils leftwards. And if it does, make sure you get in touch with Angus. He'd love to know, and you'll be contributing to some really interesting scientific research about evolutionary genetics. And of course, have a look out for all the different types of colours that you can see on snail shells as well. It's really kind of beautiful that you can get so much variety in snails.
Yes, it definitely is something to look out for, and it has so many different colours. So if your favourite colour is like pink, you can look out for pink shells. If your favourite colour is yellow, you can just look out for them. So that is very interesting indeed.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So we've got some lovely photos and videos coming through. So first up, here's some photos of different types of fungi. So if you're a fungi expert, do let us know what you think these different types of photos are of. This is very close up one that we've got. The next one, these are very unusual. I think these ones are called bracket fungi, so they grow kind of along in a really unusual shape. Those are quite common across in woodland. And the final one, I couldn't find the name of this when I was looking it up, but it's yeah, you could probably even miss it if you were just walking in the woodland. You might think that it's just part of the tree bark, but it's actually, yeah, it's a fungi. So this year, I was mentioning earlier Roma Patel. So this year she's our artist in residence, and she's been exploring the mycelium network that goes underneath the ground. And her interactive installation is going to be here at Wollaton Hall when it reopens. And in the meantime, there's some pupils from local primaries here in Wollaton that are working on creating their own fungi sculptures using clay. So they're choosing their favourite different type of fungi, and they're going to be sculpting it, and then they'll bring them and it'll be part of the installation.
Yes, and here we've got a video I expect everyone who's been to this park has got on their phone, or just have in general, a photo of a deer sitting very relaxed in the park.
And here's a video from the top of the hall. You can see really far out into the distance. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. So we've had 4 days of Wollaton Watch so far. Jessica, what's been your favourite?
I'd say Henry Whipple Primary School. The video was so cute. It was just lovely to see how much they're enjoying themselves, having so much fun, and still learning activities, like we said before, like teamwork and perseverance. So that was such a lovely video. I remember that, yeah.
My favourite's still yet to come. So my favourite's in tomorrow's show. So you'll have to join us tomorrow, same time, same place, and we'll see you then. Bye.